She ruled Egypt at 21. She spoke 9 languages. She commanded armies, navigated the most brutal political world in the ancient Mediterranean. She achieved a groundbreaking milestone today, and she did it without ever apologizing for who she was. They said I was dangerous, a foreign queen with too much ambition and not enough shame. They were right. Today's guest is Cleopatra VII of Egypt, one of the most strategically brilliant and self-possessed rulers in recorded history. Power is not something that is handed to you. It is something you must decide you already possess. She was exiled from her own palace. She lost everything, and she came back. I was exiled twice, and had to take back what was mine, not by force alone, but by refusing to believe it was lost. If you have ever doubted whether you belong in the room, stay right here. This conversation will change something in you. Welcome. Most people know your name. Very few actually know your story. Who are you, in your own words? I am Cleopatra Philopator, the last of the Ptolemaic line. My family ruled Egypt for nearly 3 centuries, but many of them never truly became Egyptian. I did. I learned the language. I took on the role of Isis herself in the eyes of my people. I was not merely a ruler by inheritance, I was a ruler by choice. And how old were you when you first came to power? 18, co-regent with my father. And when he died, according to surviving accounts, around 51 BCE, Ptolemy XIII, who was perhaps 10 years old at the time, his advisors immediately moved to remove me. And yet you didn't disappear. You fought back. What kept you going through those dark times? You cannot fight something you have not first accepted you deserve. That was the first lesson. Not tactics, not alliances. Belief. You were forced out of Alexandria, exiled from your own kingdom. That had to feel like complete annihilation. It was humiliating. I will not pretend otherwise. To be driven from the palace your ancestors built, to camp in the desert while someone else sits on your throne, yes, that hollows you out. How did you not just give up? Because giving up felt more humiliating than the exile itself. Humiliation can be a gift, you know. It strips away everything you pretended to be and leaves only what is real. In the desert, I had no throne, no palace, no court. I had only myself, and I discovered that I was enough. That is a profound thing to arrive at alone in a tent. The desert is an honest teacher. It does not flatter you, it asks only one question. Do you intend to survive? I answered yes every morning. That is how self-confidence actually works. Not in the grand moments, in the small, private decisions to keep going when no one is watching. Let's talk about the moment you re-entered Alexandria according to historical accounts, including the writings of Plutarch. You had yourself smuggled into Caesar's quarters, concealed inside a linen sack, or perhaps a carpet. What was going through your mind? I needed to reach Caesar before my brother's men killed me. The method was unorthodox, I admit. But consider what it communicated. I arrived on my own terms, unannounced, unexpected, in the private chambers of the most powerful Roman in the world. Before I said a single word, I had already demonstrated something about my character. That you were bold enough to do what others wouldn't dare. That I was not waiting for permission. This is something people misunderstand about confidence. They think it means having no fear. That is not confidence. That is foolishness. Confidence means you act in spite of the fear. I was terrified that night, but I moved anyway. And the meeting changed everything. Caesar supported my claim to the throne. But I want to be careful here. I did not win him over merely by appearing. I was prepared. I spoke Latin, I understood Roman politics intimately. The entrance was theater. The substance behind it was real. You mentioned speaking Latin. Historians generally credit you with speaking multiple languages: Egyptian, Greek, Aramaic, Ethiopian, Hebrew, and others. Was this a calculated strategy? It was both a strategy and a conviction. My conviction was this: You cannot lead people whose language you do not speak. It was both a strategy and a conviction. My conviction was this: you cannot lead people whose language you do not speak. Not truly. Language is not merely words. It carries how a people think, what they fear, what they honor. When I spoke to an Egyptian priest in his own tongue, I was not performing. I was telling him I had done the work to understand him. And that created a kind of loyalty that wealth or titles couldn't buy. Exactly. People follow those who see them. So many rulers throughout history have confused fear with loyalty and obedience with respect. They are entirely different things. My power was not only military or political, it was relational. The most durable authority is built on genuine connection, and genuine connection requires genuine effort. What would you say to someone who feels they aren't naturally confident, that confidence is something other people are just born with?
I would say become irreplaceable, and confidence will follow. I was not born confident. I was born curious. I studied. I prepared.
I mastered things others dismissed as unnecessary for a queen to know. That mastery, that genuine competence, is what turns a nervous girl into someone who walks into a room and changes it quietly. No one gave that to me, I built it. Roman accounts have not always been kind to you. You've been portrayed as a seductress, a manipulator, someone who used charm rather than intellect. How do you sit with that? Men who cannot imagine that a woman could be strategically brilliant will always search for another explanation. Octavian Caesar's heir, who defeated me, spent years crafting a version of me that served his purposes. He needed Rome to believe he had triumphed over a great seductress. I was not a formidable queen. The narrative was political. It was designed to diminish me because my full truth was too threatening. And yet, the criticism stuck for centuries. Yes, and here is what I want to say about that, because it is perhaps the most important thing in this entire conversation. The people who try to rewrite who you are only have that power if you let their story become your inner voice. I knew who I was. I knew what I had built, what I had sacrificed, what I had mastered. No proclamation from Rome could undo that knowledge inside me. It's about building an unshakable internal foundation. This provides resilience and stability in uncertain times. To understand, you become background noise. Unpleasant, yes, but not defining. I want to ask about the end. Alexandria fell to Octavian in 30 BCE. You had lost almost everything. And yet, based on accounts from that period, you refused to be paraded through Rome as a conquest. You chose death on your own terms. What do you want people to understand about that decision? Octavian wanted to display me in chains behind his chariot through the streets of Rome, to use my humiliation as the crown jewel of his triumph. And I decided, no, not out of despair, out of clarity. I had ruled Egypt. I had been worshipped as Isis, mother of gods. I would not become a spectacle for someone else's glory. That is a profound kind of power, the power to define your own ending.
Self-possession is not only about how you rise. It is about how you hold yourself under every condition, including the worst ones.
I want to be careful that no one hears this as encouragement toward despair. It is the opposite. The message is never surrender the authorship of your own life. Under any pressure, in any circumstance, you always retain some form of that. The details of what actually happened remain a matter of historical debate. But the meaning of the act seems clear.
The meaning is this: they took my kingdom. They could not take my dignity. And that final refusal, that last insistence on being the author of my own story, is perhaps the truest expression of everything I have spoken about today.
Before I let you go, I want to ask one last question. If you could leave one idea with someone who right now feels completely out of their depth, feels like they don't have the power or the right to take up the space they want, what would you tell them?
You are already more capable than the role they have assigned you. No one handed me Egypt. I had to fight for it twice. I had to rebuild myself in the desert before I could rebuild my kingdom. Every great act of self-possession in my life began not with certainty.
The decision to act as though I were certain until the certainty arrived. That is the secret. Act as though. The confidence will catch up. Cleopatra VII, queen, strategist, linguist, and perhaps the most self-determined ruler the ancient world ever produced. This conversation has been extraordinary. Thank you.
Remember, Egypt.
There it is, 21 years old, exiled, came back, built an empire, held it with languages, intellect, and a refusal to be anyone other than herself. The question she's really asking each of us is simple. Where have you been waiting for someone else's permission? Take a moment with that. And if this conversation moved something in you, share it with one person who needs to hear it. That's all. No pressure, just pass it on. See you in the next one.